From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy. And our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Okay, board to reconvene. Good afternoon and welcome back to the July 28, 2 p.m. meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. We'll begin as we always do with roll call. Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Parlier.
Here.
Supervisor Flores.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. I'd like to report very proudly and with great excitement and great expectation that today in closed session regarding item number 50 of this morning's agenda, I'm pleased to report that by a unanimous vote of 5-0, the Board of Supervisors appointed our very own Craig Murphy as Interim Director of Planning and Natural Resources effective August 23, 2025. Mr. Murphy will fill the role upon the retirement of our current Director, Lorelei Oviatt, on August 22, 2025. We will have an opportunity to celebrate Ms. Oviatt's years of outstanding service at an upcoming board meeting prior to her departure. Mr. Murphy started his career with the county as a planner 20 years ago, not to age you, Craig, but worked his way up to become the Assistant Director of Planning and Natural Resources, a position he has held for 7 years. This board and this county are so fortunate to have somebody as accomplished and capable and brilliant and devoted as Mr. Murphy to serve as Interim Director of Planning and Natural Resources, and we are thankful for his continued devoted service to our county. Mr. Murphy is present. I would ask him to come over to the podium. Now that the buck stops with you, Craig, you know, there'll be new eyes on you, as you know.
Well, thank you. I don't think I've ever addressed the board from this position before. This is a little unusual for me. First, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. I'm honored, I'm grateful, and I'm humbled by this opportunity that is before me. I'd also like to take a minute real quick just to thank Lorelei. So, as you mentioned, I've worked here 20 years. 18 and a half, I think I've worked directly under Lorelei in some form as she was through the county. So I'm eternally grateful for her mentorship over the year, and I wouldn't be here today without her. I'd also like to thank staff. That's both our existing staff that I have at the department. I think we have a great department made up of great staff, but also past staff that have left the county for other opportunities. Without their efforts, without their work, I wouldn't be here as well. You know, in general, I'm a pretty self-reflective individual. Over the years, I've come up with the acronym CCHS, which I think best describes me, the characteristics that I hold most dear, and the guide or what guides me in terms of every opportunity that I have. And that stands for confidence, competitiveness, humility, and self-awareness. So those are the characteristics that, again, I bring forward everything I do, and those are the characteristics that I will bring forward serving your board as the director, serving the county of Kern and its residents as the interim director, and just very grateful for this opportunity and very humbled. Thank you so much.
Craig, you have the full faith and credit of this board. I'm very excited to see this new role that you step into. It's incredible. You know, the only constant is change. As you know, we have new planning director, we have new county council. You know, it's just the way it goes. And it's exciting to know we have such phenomenal people devoted to public service, because, you know, we need our best and our brightest within our public institutions to, you know, make government work, to make our economy work. It's just so critical. And I think you've had just the most exceptional tutelage. I know you're going to lead in your own way. You're your own man. I'm excited to see the kind of leadership that you will portray, but I have every faith in you. And I'm very excited for you, and congratulations. It's well deserved.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those kind words. And
to our new county council as well. Are there any actions that you need to report on that were taken in closed session?
Thank you very much. Yes, this morning, your board also met on items 51 through, or following this morning's agenda, on items 51 through 53, and there's no reportable action on those items.
Thank you, Kendra.
You're welcome.
We'll move to consent matters now. Consent matters are considered routine and non-controversial by county family. If the public feels otherwise, we certainly want to hear from you. But these matters are generally routine. We tend to handle them in one vote. And if the public has input on them, we ask that now's the time you pay attention to the agenda items under consent and provide your input as necessary. Consent matters begin on page 2, and they include item number 3. On page 3, all items listed 4 through 8. On page 4, all items listed 9 through 17. On page 5, all items listed 18 through 23. On page 6, items 25 through 30. Are there any members of the public who would like to weigh in on consent matters? Okay, seeing no interest there, we'll close the public portion, return to my colleagues for comment, action, suggestions. We have a motion on consent.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Supervisor Peters, I'm sorry, I just saw you punched in.
No problem. I wanted to ask about item number 10, I believe it was. Yeah, item 10, about Kern County Foundation, and just curious what the reason is for that, and then also just in the name of transparency, where the public can find more information about Kern County Foundation, because I was able to get some more information from the CAO's office, but there's very little, if anything, available that I've been able to find publicly.
Supervisor Peters, for the chair, I'll have Jason Weeby come up. The intent of the item today is to replace the former third individual who is on it now as just to the title of CAO, and so I would take that place. But Jason, if you have any information where it could be located.
Sure. The item before you today, John Nylon was initially a director, along with the position of chair of the board and the position of treasurer tax collector. Mr. Nylon resigned his position, so we're changing that to include the position of county administrative officer as a third director. So that's the item. And to your point, Supervisor Peters, through the chair, the foundation was established about 10 years ago. I believe, Supervisor Couch, correct me if I'm wrong, it's your request because the county did not have a 501c3 as a county. Some departments may have had them to receive donations for certain projects, programs, or public works. So it was established if an organization or a business wanted to make a donation that was tax deductible for a purpose such as library supplies, Keep Kern Beautiful, before they established their 501c3. We've had a few others related to behavioral health and recovery services for prescription drop-off boxes. But there was a website, and I'll have to check with ITS. There was a website where there was information on that. It may not be readily available or public-facing at this point, but I'm glad you did bring that up, Supervisor Peters, through the chair, because that's something I'll follow up with to make sure the public is aware of this resource if they want to donate to a program or project. List myself as the contact to reach out in case they want to do something like that.
All right, thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. Please, Supervisor Couch.
To amplify a little bit of what Jason just said, it was also established because I had a particular individual that wanted to leave a rather large sum to the county to maintain a particular park in the 4th district. Excuse me, in the 2nd district now. So you're going to be the beneficiary of that, Supervisor. It hasn't happened yet, but it's in this individual's trust, and it will ultimately come to the county one of these days. We hope she lives a long time, but one of these days, she is the daughter of a former 4th district supervisor and wanted to take care of this particular park that her dad had a lot to do with.
What a blessing.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
What a legacy. I love it. Okay, with that being clarified, we do have a presentation of the consent agenda for my colleagues to consider.
So I believe the motion
we
was
have a
made by
motion?
Supervisor Flores,
Second.
Yes, for consent.
and who made,
Supervisor Couch
Couch
just made the
seconded,
second.
okay.
Excellent. So let's cast your votes on consent.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Excellent. Public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for members of the public who would like to address this board on matters that are not on today's specific agenda, but are within our purview, within the jurisdiction of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. So now would be the time to come forward. State your name for the record, please. Shockingly, I see Miss Adams.
And with respect.
And with respect.
Janine Adams, Janine Haney, Hallmark Adams, Tehachapi. I just wanted to make a few comments from the 9 a.m. One of my colleagues, concerned citizens, talked about cameras and lights, for drop boxes. Now, even though he and I might be looking at things a little differently, a lot of things we do look the same, quite frankly. And the thing that I'm concerned about is that cameras and lights are so important, but if you don't have lights, why do you have cameras? And why do you spend $30,000? That was his point. But why do you have them? Because some people, it's hard for them to get their ballots in. I know many of you don't agree with me, but I'm just saying there's disenfranchised peoples, and that's why we have to do those things. Next, $30,000, quote, wasted according to my colleague. What about $400,000 for a spray park? I mean, I'm 100% for that in, Hart Park. Saw it, went there, was at the park, and then I saw this thing that looks like a turret, and it's all busted up. It's got graffiti. It's a historical thing. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
We're going to have an art project on there.
Excellent. I think that's so good because I think that we can get more tourist dollars if we clean up that park and give the historic value there. So thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And I don't think $4,000 is, a waste of money. It's peanuts, okay, in this budget. So I say, I don't know if you've ever heard of this book. It's called Think for a Change. Think to make a change, if you would. Think for a change, or think outside of the box. Let's do more of that to be as efficient as we can. Efficiency is important, not chainsaws. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Are there any other members of the public who would like to provide input on matters not on today's agenda, but on within the jurisdiction of the Kern County Board of Supervisors? Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Bassard.
Hi, Karen.
I'm a 19-year Kern County Legacy employee and a constituent of District 3. Oh, you missed your Love Fest last night, Mr. Flores. I did watch this morning's meeting in its entirety. I didn't leave. Some of the statements that were made drove home my point that I spoke about last night. Kern County Child Support Services has that backpack giveaway. We also give away free haircuts and immunizations and have other partnerships within Kern County. That brings home my point of we work together, the departments work together on helping making this community safe in different aspects. I did want to say thank you to Public Health Director Bryn Kerrigan and County HR for trying to find solutions to the possible 35 workers who are going to be displaced. I know there's a lot of finger pointing. It can go towards everybody. It can go to state, federal, and it can also go to the county because the minimum wage and the healthcare minimum wage bills have been passed, one for several years, one just recently. That needs to be budgeted into the department's budgets. I did have some questions about the outside providers. Are there going to be contracts, or are you just sending those people over there to receive services? And can we send some of our employees over there to help support those services, since there's going to be an influx of the people that we used to provide services to going out to these outside providers? So maybe some of the nurses can go over there. I'm not sure. I don't know how that works. I'm assuming there's going to be some contracts had. Also, not just for public health, which they probably can't do a lot of this, but other departments who may be facing budget cuts. You guys do have a telework policy that I was a part of, and it's not due to COVID. The benefits were to enhance recruiting and retention efforts, particularly for newer workers who have a high expectation of technology forward-thinking workplace and workers who value work-life and balance. Help manage long commutes, other work-life issues, reduce traffic congestion, emissions, infrastructure impacts, ensure continuity of essential government functions. Now, I know this is not a given. It is a privilege to do this, and some people shouldn't be
Can you please wrap up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remote workers. Also, there's also work schedules that you guys can have. And as much as I hate to say there's also a furlough program. Maybe that can be an idea. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, any other members of the public at this time? Mr. Limfesti, always nice to see you. I see you're making your way to the podium.
Yeah, I've had some health problems in the past 6 months. Anyway, I was here this morning and I declined to get up and speak, but I did hear about a resolution that a group of people are asking to the board to write a resolution, I guess, to send to the state or whatever. But I would just hope, and I'm sure that you will all go through and look at all the different points you might be asked to put in and maybe not select all of them. Because anyway, there seems to be, government services seem to be under attack lately, and it's a little ugly, some of the words that are being used for people that might actually ask for government services that might need help from time to time. And I know that it's hard in our county, and I don't see that, I'm not talking about what our county services are, but I'm saying it's a trend that I hope doesn't catch on, despite the fact there will be cutbacks and challenges. And remember, people are looking for government services, they're looking for a hand up, basically. They're not, most of these people aren't evil, they're not lazy, they just, for whatever circumstance in life, they just haven't been as successful as other people. So let's think about that. If somebody comes to the window at a public office, be kind to them, listen to their problems. Don't just assume they're want to be on the public troll. So that's something that's, I have, even though I'm 68 now, I have not yet done my Social Security. I'm waiting till 70 to maximize it. And I get the feeling now with so many cutbacks of even having offices, I don't even know if it's going to be easy to get services like that in the future. So we just need to be aware that we're talking about real humans here. So thank you.
Kindness is always a great policy, Paul. Thank you for the reminder. Any other members of the public? Okay. Board member announcements or reports. Supervisor Couch, is that for now? No. Gentlemen, anything else? I'll remind the public will be adjourning today in memory of our dear friend Conrad Moore. We're going to move on to our only agenda item remaining, and that is item number 24. It's a proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2.44 to Title II of the Kern County Ordinance Code, adding Section 2.44.050 to establish a filing fee to recover costs of processing assessment appeal applications to property tax and implementing a fee waiver for eligible applicants. As staff makes their way for presentation, I know we have public input on this matter as well. We've also received a letter from Kern Tax. I'm assuming we'll be hearing from Mr. Turnipseed and the Kern Taxpayers Association as well. Thank you, staff. Welcome. I see, is Kathy, are you up first? Or okay, Stacy. Thank you, Stacy. You're up.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Stacy Kuwahara, your Assistant CAO. This proposed ordinance was brought forward to the board in the July 15th board meeting, where it was unanimously approved by your board. Today is the second reading of the ordinance change. County staff feel this is routine and non-controversial. However, this item is being brought forward off consent in response to correspondence from the public. At this time, it would be appropriate to call for public comment. Staff's recommendation is to enact the ordinance. We recognize there may be questions following public comment, so myself, Ms. Kathy Kraus, Ms. Christina Miller from the Assessor's Office are all available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Stacy. I appreciate that. We're going to open the public hearing portion of this item and ask the public to come forward and provide input, please.
As you know, I'm retired from the assessor's office. I've spoke to this board many times about what goes on at the assessor's office. And one of the things is the Assessment Appeals Board is critical. The work, I've told you this before, the work, say hi, okay, of those people who I used to work with, okay, work for, critical to maintaining our tax roll that is under attack by commercial entities filing nonsense appeals that clog up the system. Am I right? Yes, I am right. And you can ask anybody in staff if I'm right, okay? And so I have no idea why this came off of consent. It was one of the few times I was not here, which kind of amazing, really. But it is so critical, and I'm sure you're going to hear from staff with regard to this, but it's not just big oil, big ag that have huge corporate legal departments that are up against them, okay, us, me, I've had an appeal at the Assessment Appeals Board, okay? But their goal is to muck up the system and get whatever they can. Muck up the system by flooding it with all these silly appeals that we have to respond to, we, the assessor's office, we, the county, and quite frankly, they do not care. If they muck anything up, all they care is that they get to tell their client who they want their commercial real estate business with, that they threw in 600 appeals on their properties. Only 4 of them went through, but whoa, I'm so smart. No, and then they mucked up our county in the process. And I think that pretty much just explains it all. If you have any questions of me or the assessor, what are you, Bennett? Thank you. Assistant assessor. He's in charge. He's the top guy as far as assessments are concerned, not recording, not the assessor recorder. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other public comment regarding this matter? I see Mr. Turnipseed's making his way down. We did receive a letter from Mr. Turnipseed and his organization that is part of the record today, but certainly looking forward to your input, sir. Welcome and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am Michael Turnipseed. I represent the Kern County Taxpayers Association. Kern Tax feels that taxpayers should never be obstructed or burdened in pursuing all legally available administrative remedies regarding disputes over locally assessed property. However, we do recognize that the clerk is experiencing a current workload that may necessitate a fee structure for processing the property tax appeals. With that said, we'd like to make the following recommendations. We'd like a full examination of each of the 6 tax rolls. We've mentioned that in our previous meetings, because you look at the total number of appeals and you can talk about how many oil companies there are. The paperwork, if you're doing a house appeal or appeal, it's a piece of paper, whether it's from an oil company or a residential, it's a residence. It's one piece of paper that you have to process. I think if you would ask the clerk, people who file from business, oil, wind, I don't think there are many people in agriculture because they have the Williamson Act. So I don't think you see any ag people taking advantage of that. But the point is that people file, appeal. I want to file an appeal. And she never, according to the clerk, you never hear from them again. She's prepared the paperwork, and they don't show up for settlement hearings, they don't show up for appeal hearings, and you wasted all their time and effort. That's why we want an audit of all the rolls to see where your problem is. I don't think your problem is universal. I think your problem is segment, because you treat a home appraisal for the clerk the same as an oil appeal. So we're here. We want to create a mechanism that allowing a single application and fee where the assessor has chosen to combine multiple parcels into a single economic unit. There are economic units that could have 50 parcels in it, and you're having a discussion about one parcel, but under the proposal, there would be 50 fees because there's 50 parcels in the economic unit, the way it's set up now and the way it was explained to me. We want to create a mechanism where taxpayers are reimbursed the filing fee if their value is actually reduced. If it's not reduced, you don't get your money back. We also want to examine ways of applying new technologies to supplement the clerk's duties relative to processing of appeals or other permits within the county to streamline the process. The city just announced a major change in the way they're doing their permitting now by AI, that instead of waiting 3 months to get a permit, you get it in 2 days. So those are the kind of efficiencies we think are important. Kern Tax respectfully requests that you delay tax in 2 weeks so we continue to have a discussion with the interested parties. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll gladly answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Mike. You might want to stay close in the front row. That'd be helpful. You and Janine can arm wrestle or something.
We all have hecklers.
Okay. Any other members of the public who would like to weigh in on this matter? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and return to the board. Actually, can I ask staff to comment on, we had 2 speakers. If anything struck you, if you'd like to respond to, now would be a good time.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to, I wrote down Mr. Turnipseed's items. I'd like to address them. I'm going to go a little bit out of order to how they were presented because I think the first question about the tax rolls probably would be spoken to and addressed best by the assessor. Mr. Turnipseed asked about applying new technology, I think with the intention of looking at streamlining and making our appeal system more efficient. We are absolutely willing and open to doing that. We haven't had a chance to introduce her yet, but we do have a new clerk of the board starting, and we're really focused right now on making sure that she's up to date on all of her new duties, but this is a priority that we will look at in the months ahead. Mr. Turnipseed talked about a reimbursement fee if value is reduced. We've talked about this internally in our planning and considered this as an option. We came to the conclusion that this would create a very burdensome process for the clerk of the board. It's putting the clerk of the board and their staff to be responsible for financial exchanges and transactions. They do not currently have fiscal staff. Creating this fee is a new requirement. They don't have fiscal staff, and the fee is being proposed as a filing fee for processing the application. It should be maintained independently from the hearing process of the assessor appeals, which is a very distinct and separate process. The filing and the work that needs to be completed by the clerk of the board needs to be completed by the clerk of the board regardless of the outcome of the hearing. I'd like to remind your board that we have offered a fee waiver. When a fee waiver should be applied, they will be applying that, and certain applicants will not be required to pay the fee. We've had a lot of conversations about single applications and single application fees where the assessor is identifying a single economic unit. I see that Ms. Kraus has turned her mic on, so I'm gonna let her, no, you don't, okay. Single economic units are a very complicated. I've learned a lot about assessment appeals and what's going on with the assessor's office in the last few weeks. And it's my understanding that if a number of parcels is operating as a single economic unit, then during the assessment appeals hearing, the assessment appeals board needs to consider the entire unit as one in making their determination in the evaluation. It has absolutely nothing to do with the work that's being completed by the clerk of the board as they're processing this information to prepare an application for the assessment appeals hearing. We've made it very easy for our applicants in certain circumstances to apply and complete a single application for multiple parcels. What they don't see, and they often receive one letter from the clerk of the board that will contain all of their parcels and their information in one letter. What our applicants don't see on the back end is that the Board of Equalization has a very specific form that must be completed by the clerk of the board and her staff, and it has to be filed for every single parcel as a separate entity. So the work that we're proposing is very specific to the work that is completed by the clerk of the board and her office. What the public often sees is a streamlined process. They have their parcels heard as a single economic unit, as it should be, as is defined by the rules that govern the assessment appeals process. But her work remains the same, and that is the evaluation that we completed when determining the best course of action in proposing this ordinance change. With regards to the 6 tax rolls, our assessment appeals hearing, I'm sorry, Ms. Miller, I don't know your official title, but you have created some data for us. If you want to pull up this slide that Ms. Miller created, it shows information about the appeals filed per property type. We looked at the last 5 years and did our own calculations. About 35% of the appeals are from mines and energy, 18% are oil and gas, 23% of the appeals, almost 24%, are coming from commercial properties, 8% are coming from business properties, 6% from agriculture, and a little over 8% are coming from residential. So it is fairly spread out evenly across the 6 different types of roles that the assessor is dealing with.
And Madam Chair, I'm going to add one comment to that because I know there was a question, there was some confusion about that oil and gas and was combined with mines and energy. Mines and energy are, obviously our biggest mine is the borax mine. So Rio Tinto's U.S. borax mine is the largest mine in Kern County. There are others. And then mines and energy also includes all of the wind energy appeals. We have a lot of wind energy appeals in Kern County.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Couch, you punched in, but Supervisor Flores, did you want to say something in response to staff?
I said that might help Mr.
I
Turnipseed's
see.
question about the roll percentages.
Got it.
I think.
Thank you. Let's hope. Supervisor,
Oh, I was gonna answer that.
Supervisor,
Okay.
Supervisor Couch.
I'll defer. I'll wait. If you want to go to Mr. Turnipseed. If he has a further question or needs a clarification before I get started.
There's another chart you had, which had the total number of appeals filed and how many actually got settled. And that's how, that's the one. So the blue lines never really get to the actual hearing. Those are the yellow on the top, correct?
Okay, so the blue line are the total appeals filed.
Yep.
And the orange on top are the appeals that actually go to hearing.
Yep.
That go to hearing. That's not saying that they aren't, that the ones in blue are not settled in some form,
Yeah,
but the ones that actually go to hearing. But every single appeal filed must go before the Assessment Appeals Board, and many appeals go before that board multiple times before they're resolved.
Yes.
Okay.
But the whole process is, how many of in that blue line, people, and you mentioned the problem, they file the appeal with you, you do the work, and you never hear from them again. They don't show up for the settlement conferences, they don't return your calls, they don't do anything. What is that percentage of those claims? Because that's the problem you have. You're doing work for people that aren't following all the way through the process, and there's no penalty for the people that make you do work, and then, because you have to file it by November 1st, and you can settle it till June 30th. I think you have it that's when it has to, if you're going to negotiate with the assessor's office, the way it was explained to me. So there's 8 months, 9 months, 7 months, where the guy's sitting at home, he might have filed it on his house, or a businessman. It's not important anymore. It was important when they got their tax bill and they wanted to appeal it, but 6 months later, 9 months later, things change. They don't worry about it. I'd like to see the actual numbers of how many people fill out the paperwork. She spends the money just to do your job, and you never hear anything with it. I mean, that's an abuse. For the people who are doing that, they're abusing the system.
And the assessor, Christina, may have those figures available.
Well, I'd like to see them, and I think it'd be good to see the board. I mean, I asked for them, so it's just something that it's just, we're not opposed to a reasonable fee. We do think, though, that if you're doing one hearing, you should have one fee for one hearing, not 50. If there's 50 units, if there are 50 parcels in a unit, and they're all going to get affected ultimately, if you change one, it affects all the rest of them. I understand that, because it's just the way it works, I guess, with the assessors. But the real question is here for you is, how do we make, what can the board do to make it easier on the clerk to not have such frivolous work that doesn't even happen?
I would like to remind you, Mr. Turnipseed, that any appeal that had 50 parcels, that's going to be a complicated hearing. It's not going to take place at a normal assessment appeals board hearing. It's probably going to be a 2-week special hearing. And so if you think about the costs that are incurred by the clerk of the board's office and the assessor in hearing those very complicated items, it's the cost to hear a residential appeal at an assessment appeals board meeting is minimal compared to the cost to hear a 2-week hearing on oil and gas or wind energy or a mine.
Does that affect your office or the assessor's
Yes, it affects my office because the clerk of the board is clerking those meetings. Yes.
Okay. So the point still is that we have, this is the process. We didn't make the process. Sacramento makes the process. And the fact is that whether we decide to treat the economic unit as the appeal and not the parcel, because it's my understanding the assessor is the one who creates the economic unit, not the taxpayer.
I'm not sure that's correct. I think the assessor would need to respond to that.
Please. We don't traditionally do a back and forth between staff and speakers, so we're giving some liberty here, but generally, it's not how we conduct business. Can you please come forward, Assessor, and give us your thoughts?
Hi, good afternoon, Chairwoman and Board of Supervisors. Christina Miller, I'm the Chief of Assessment Standards for the Assessor's Office. The assessor does not determine what an economic unit is. The market determines what an economic unit is. So we have to follow what is commonly bought and sold in the market. So if parcels are commonly bought and sold together, that is the determination of what an economic unit is. And sometimes that distinction of what constitutes an economic unit has to be heard before the Assessment Appeals Board when the applicant and the assessor disagree on what constitutes an economic unit.
Thank you. I think we're going to close the public hearing portion of this hearing, so my apologies for taking some liberties there, but I think we're done with the public hearing portion. I'm now going to bring it back to the board to ask Supervisor Couch if you could weigh in.
Chair, my apologies. I led you down the primrose path on that one.
You sure did.
And I didn't mean
Thanks.
to.
Thanks.
This is, I know enough to be dangerous about this, but this is a very complicated matter.
Yes.
And I think everyone is coming at it from their own background. Oil and gas people think about 50 parcels or whatever it is being an oil field, and that's an economic unit. The owner of a commercial building thinks about the building, which might be one parcel, and the parking lot, which might be a separate parcel, but that's an economic unit. So they're all coming at it from different perspectives and the way they think about these economic units and what makes sense for them. I'm going to ask, and I first of all, I want to apologize for even asking this, because I think staff made a very good faith effort to establish a fee that would do one thing, and then there would be a byproduct of that one thing. It would cover a portion of the cost of the clerk of the board, not the assessor's office, just the work that the clerk of the board does. And in doing so, it would cut down on the frivolous appeals and would free up this person that works in your office to do, instead of having this be their one full-time job all year long, every day, this is all they work on, they might have a quarter of their time or half of their time to do something else. That was the goal. I would like us to take a step back. I think you got down to the 10-yard line, maybe the 5-yard line, but I think it would work better for everyone involved if we could get Mr. Turnipseed and the group that I met with yesterday that I think you met with, Ms. Kuwahara, and maybe others that need to be involved in this too with their perspective. And let's give this 2 weeks and see if instead of us just doing it today and getting it over with, let's do it right. If it can be better, let's see if it can be. If it can't be, maybe it can't be, but let's give it 2 weeks, because it's my understanding this is not going to go into effect for a month. People could file their appeals today, or even within the next 30 days after we approve it, and this fee won't even be, they won't pay the fee, because it doesn't go into effect for 30 days. Am I right about that? So
You have to be 1 or 3 weeks, Couch. We're back next Tuesday and then 2 weeks
sorry.
after.
I thought we talked about something coming back in 2 weeks in
Whatever you
closed
think.
session. When is our next meeting? Just,
August 5, and then again, August
19.
August 19.
okay. I'm going to guess that maybe not everybody can get together within a week and bring something back within 1 week.
I agree.
So I'll make a motion that we defer, what's the right terminology, Madam? Continue this item until the date certain, which is August what?
19.
19th.
And I would suggest that we hear this during the PM session, because on August 19th, during the AM session, we're going to be hearing the Truth Act forum.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to continue this matter and continue the conversation, more importantly, to August 19th. Supervisor Flores.
Just so I understand where we're going, the process in terms of first read, second read, and effective date. So by going down, if you convene again and work out the details, does that sustain the second reading, or does that kill the second reading? We just start from scratch?
Supervisor Flores, through the chair, you're going to continue the matter, so it would be just a continuation of this hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Couch.
But let me ask a question about that. What I think you're asking, Jeff, let's say it changes from $75 to $95 in certain cases and $65 in other cases, or there's a modification. Can that come back? We can. That's what I'm thinking. That we'd have to give you direction at the next meeting to bring back a different ordinance, correct?
Exactly. I think
Okay.
county council would advise that we could not, on the fly that day make a substantive change. And so I'm sure county council would advise that the item then come back. Well, we would start all over, basically.
Which we could give you that direction today, but I think it's more important that you sit down with the people that this impacts, because they may end up understanding more about what you do, and they may see that this is a legitimate way of doing it, and that they may agree with you. They may not.
Or may not change it,
Who knows? But I want to give them that opportunity. And I would like to be involved in that, or at least monitor how that's.
I would not.
How that's going. And I don't blame you.
If that's okay.
But I'm doing that because I'm asking you to continue it, so I think I need to be involved in
You're
that.
well situated for that as well. Supervisor Parlier.
Kathy, one of the suggestions I think Michael made, and I know with your expertise, as you've reached out to other counties and stuff, it may not necessarily be a fit when you talk about economic units and stuff. I believe that LA County is dealing with something that they wish they maybe did it differently. And you don't have to answer now. I just want that you maybe have those conversations regarding your expertise, your conversations with other counties of things that are being suggested but are being enacted in other places that don't necessarily work.
Yes, and when we met with Mr. Turnipseed and his group yesterday, I did voice that information. I'm happy to share that at any time with anyone. I had an in-depth conversation with a clerk who works with the Assessment Appeals Division for LA County, which they hear about 20,000 appeals. They have a staff of 30. We have a staff of 1. And I spoke with the Assessment Appeals Board clerk in Santa Barbara County. So understand that out of the 43 counties that have an application filing fee, 41 of them require a per application, per parcel fee. So if you have 1 parcel or if you have 10 parcels, you're going to pay that fee for every parcel that you are appealing. The application from the state BOE only has room for 1 parcel, for information for 1 parcel. So you're appealing that parcel. If somebody owns 5 parcels, that's 5 applications. Those are 5 appeals. And that's how 41 of the 43 counties, their fee is all the same across the state. For LA County alone and Santa Barbara County, they have a different fee, a different process. And I think between now and when we talk again, I'll have a longer in-depth conversation with Santa Barbara County to figure out how they are dealing with. The clerk should never be asked to, the clerk cannot determine what an economic unit is. And so to accept appeals as an economic unit, I'm not sure how they do it. I know how LA County's doing it. What's happening is the appeals are filed, multiple appeals are filed on 1 application. And then when the assessor receives that information, once the clerk has processed it, the assessor is looking at it and making a determination that, no, the property owner was wrong. These 20 appeals are not 1 economic unit. Maybe they're 3 different economic units, or there's an appeal that needs to be kicked out completely. It's its own entity, but it's not part of any economic unit. And so you've got the property owner and the assessor in disagreement, so the clerk is now scheduling a hearing before the assessor can even work the appeals. The clerk has to schedule a hearing before the Assessment Appeals Board, because it'll be the Assessment Appeals Board's job to determine whether they're going to bifurcate those appeals into separate hearings or hear them as 1 unit. And I asked the clerk at LA County, I said, well, if that happens then, and it's determined that there are multiple appeals here and it's not just 1 application, it's 5 applications, do you then go back and request the fee that you didn't get for those filings? And he said, absolutely not, it's a nightmare. He said, there's no way. And LA County wishes, and I'll say it in public, they wish they never had gone with this process. They did it, and now they're dealing with the fallout of it. So in no way, shape, or form does Kern County want to model themselves after what LA County is doing. I want to learn more about what Santa Barbara County is doing, because the clerk of the Assessment Appeals Board is accepting economic units, and I don't know how she can make that determination. So I'll get more information about what Santa Barbara County is doing, but the other 41 counties that are doing what I'm asking this board to do are all in agreement that each appeal, every application has its own appeal. And if you're allowed to include multiple appeals with an application, it's still an application, it's still, there's still multiple appeals with that application.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Flores, was your question answered?
You answered my question perfectly to a T.
Okay.
So the
Awesome.
41, they do it per parcel. We're modeling that. We're trying to break the logjam, break the frivolous appeals, and bring some order and stability. I think we're going in the right direction. It's still not full cost recovery. And I think that at some point, once we implement in the future, I think it's going to break up the logjam. I think that those that have a legitimate appeal will finally, they're going to get better response from the assessor's office, because all the workload will decrease, and those that truly have to go forward will go forward. And so few of them already go forward now, because most of them are resolved up front. So I think we're going in the right direction.
And my goal in this, in talking with Christina Miller at length and learning more about what the assessor does, you know, the assessor, I don't know what time of year the assessor sends out the hundreds of thousands of letters that go out to any property that has income. So if you're a residential property owner, you're not going to get a letter from the assessor. But if you have income property, you're going to get a letter from the assessor. They need information from you in order to properly place the value on the roll. And they're asking you for information. And they're giving you a deadline of when they want that, when they need that information. And if property owners are responsive, my thought is that the assessor is getting the information they need, they're properly valuing the property, and everything is fine. If the assessor is ignored, at some point, they must have a process in place where they have to, that roll has to be, all the values have to be identified by, I think it's July 1. So they're working with a deadline. If they don't have all the information they need, they've got to come up with something, their best guess. I don't know how they do that, but if the property owner, the business owner, you know, anybody who looks at their tax, anybody that gets that letter, if they are responding and working with the assessor, I don't see where they will need to file an appeal by November 30. I truly believe that if they're getting a letter in January, they've got 11 months to get this figured out. I think it can be done. And truly, the only reason that I brought this forward for multiple reasons, but in watching what happens in the Assessment Appeals Board for the last 18 years, and in listening specifically to Supervisor Peters and his constant mantra of efficiencies, let's find efficiencies, let's do it better. I'm looking at the general fund, and even though it's a small hit, it's still a hit on the general fund every single year, and what can we do about it? And I felt this is what my department can do to do our part in finding a better process, something more efficient, and not, as your Assessment Appeals Board member, Rick Musselman, stated at the last meeting, not wasting county resources.
Thank you so much. I commend you.
Lean Six Sigma.
Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Couch. Do we have a second? Yes, Supervisor Parlier. Sorry about that.
So Kathy, you're retiring. You're on the way out the door.
I am.
You know, most people would say, hey, I've had a great career. I don't have to do anything but relax and enjoy my last few weeks. But you brought this forth because you felt it was the right thing to do for your department, for the county, and help clear up the logjam, correct?
Absolutely.
And your predecessor coming in,
Yep.
it won't be as heavy of a lift for them.
That, you are exactly right, yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second on the continuance? Did we get a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Oh, Supervisor Peters, I just saw you. Punch in.
Thank you. I understand what Mr. Turnipseed was saying, and I appreciate it. I personally, looking at this as we've gone along, I've talked with Kathy, I've talked with some other folks involved with assessment appeals, and I think that this is just a way to very simply end the frivolous stuff we've been seeing. So I commend you, Kathy, on this effort, and I'm in favor of going forward, but we already have a motion and a second, so we'll see how that plays out.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Supervisor Hello? Supervisor Couch's motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 no. Supervisor Perez. No, Peters. Oh, Peters. Thank you. Thank you.
Do we need to retake, I mean, what's the vote? I'm sorry.
Sorry. The vote is, the motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 opposed. Supervisor Peters.
Got it. Okay, so we'll take the issue back up on August 19th. Okay. That brings us to the end of our agenda this afternoon, excuse me. We will be adjourning today in the honor of our dear friend Conrad Moore. After my remarks today, I was reminded by Donnie Youngblood that he was always a consummate gentleman. Absolute true. Absolutely true. And we will adjourn in his memory today, and it'll be part of the official record. With that said, Supervisor Flores, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, excellent. So moved.